you're an advocate for your patient to always get themselves better and empower them to have the tools to get better themselves, then you're going to be fine at a time like this. What I always tell people is I'm just kind of an educator more so than anything. My job is to give you the tools to treat yourself.
Welcome to Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm your host, Jen Trepic, talking wellness and weight loss for real life. We're here to clear up the myths, misinformation, bad science, and marketing to teach you how to eat and how to cheat. Are you ready? I'm having salad with a side of fries. Hey everybody, welcome back to Salad with a Side of Fries. As always, I'm your host, Jen Trepic. It's fall. We are getting back to school. Work days are potentially looking more like work days, even though many of us are still at home. And what's even more is that sometimes weekends now look like weekdays between all of the sitting and the screen time. So that makes it the perfect moment for today's episode. So our guest today is going to help us be our own physical therapist. So let me tell you guys a little about him. He is a doctorate of physical therapy, has a bachelor's in science and physical therapy and exercise science. He's an orthopedic certified specialist, sports certified specialist. He's a Titleist Performance Institute medical professional. He's a hospital for special surgery credentialed advanced hip clinician and a certified dry needling specialist. He enjoys working with patients to close the loop of injury and recovery, helping them in their journey toward rehabilitation from start to finish. After graduating from Sacred Heart University, he underwent an intensive sports residency program with the Steadman Hawkins Clinic, then returned to Sacred Heart as an adjunct professor. He's published his research on physical therapy in numerous publications and seeks to serve as an educator both in and out of the performance clinic, where he serves as the leader of clinical operations. He used to play Division I soccer for Sacred Heart and continues to stay active and play recreational sports. In his downtime, he spends time with family and friends, likes to go hiking and paddleboarding, which is awesome. And on top of all of it, he's the co-host of the podcast Optimal Health Uncovered. And perhaps what I appreciate most is that he says, I empower people to live better by practicing what I preach, which is exactly what we do here. So without further ado, please help me welcome Mike Beecher. Mike, thank you.
Thanks for having me. It's a very generous introduction. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So I'm so excited to have you here. How are you? I saw you and Todd. So Todd is Mike's co-host, everybody. Last week, you guys interviewed me for your show. So everyone be sure to check that out. And that was your daughter's first day of school. So how'd everything go?
Yeah, thanks. That was a great episode. So thanks for coming down first and foremost. That was excellent. Haley's first day of school was great. She loved it. She's a kindergartner, which is why I did that podcast remotely kind of for the first time. So she's loving school. She had no separation anxiety. We did on the parent end. So tears were shed from the parent side, not from the student side. She was basically running out of the car. So all good there. And we're happy to have her in school.
Nice. So how are mornings now that everybody has to get up and out?
Yeah, a little bit busier. My easiest days are the days where I'm out before anyone wakes up. So my wife has it tough during those. A couple of days a week I'm there helping shuttle off to school. And it's different now with COVID, mostly no buses. She could take the bus, but really they encourage us not to put her on there. And for us, it's a little bit more separation from other individuals if she's not on there. So it just adds a different element, and all parents are going through it. It was a rough couple of days in terms of just figuring out scheduling, but we seem to have found the groove. And as soon as we figure out, I'm sure another speed bump will be thrown our way, but all good. Happy to have her in school, healthy so far. So all happy.
Good. Yeah. So we've been talking about mornings for the last couple weeks here. So for our members, once again this week, you are getting a recipe to make mornings easy. It is a homemade breakfast bar that is packed with fiber and protein. It's yummy and obviously super quick. It's the grab and go breakfast that's clean and lean, giving you everything you need to support your health and your energy. And I'm including a recipe for an optional frosting that goes on them too, which just makes them even more amazing. And this month, our members also get their live Q&A session with me for the quarter. And we're actually doing that as a one-on-one again, everybody. So be sure that link to schedule your time will be in your email as well. So to get in on this and receive this recipe, make sure you're a member. If you're not already, go to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries. For just $10 a month, you get weekly recipes, a monthly article or tool, extra discounts from me and our partners, plus access to live Q&A sessions. And this month, that Q&A session is a one-on-one for 30 minutes. So this really is a bargain at $10 a month. If you take advantage of all the full offerings that we give you and the extra discounts, it's actually free. Very simple so that you can take action towards your better health. So as we say, show yourself that your health is a priority with this membership. Remember, all you have to do is go to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries or click the link in the show notes. Once you're there, click support now, enter your email, payment method, click subscribe, and you're all set. So that's this week, you'll be getting the breakfast bars with the frosting recipe and also the link to book your free one-on-one 30-minute session. All right, Mike, back to you. I like to start at the beginning. I know you were an athlete, but how did you find your way to physical therapy, and what made you decide to go all the way through to doctorate of physical therapy?
Sure, great question. I was injured like most athletes throughout my career, nothing serious. Luckily, I was able to get through from 5 years old playing soccer all the way up through college with only minor bumps and scrapes and kind of one concussion. But throughout that journey, there was sports medicine injuries. So it was physical therapy, a little bit of chiropractic, sports medicine doctors. That just got me interested in the sports medicine field. I was always interested in continuing in sports, didn't necessarily have the talent to continue on a professional level, but wanted to work around athletic individuals, thought, sports medicine was really cool. And I liked the interaction that I had with those providers kind of from start to finish, whether it was a physical therapist, chiropractor. I was really blessed with having great individuals to work with. And there's that personal connection. It was a little bit of a different area in medicine than I was used to, certainly going to at that time a pediatrician and then primary care doctors, where you have 5 to 10 minutes of great face time when you get a good practitioner, but it wasn't kind of enough for me. And I wanted to spend a little bit more time with patients. So I was started looking at something like physical therapy, where I can spend, an hour of one-on-one time with somebody, or one-on-two time, depending on kind of the practice model. I got to see them go through the journey of start to finish from injury, right? And getting that sense of closure. I'm a closure person. I'm someone who would drive me crazy if I were to prescribe something and not know if someone followed through with it, whether that was a medication or otherwise. So I liked having a sense of closure, for better or worse, knowing if I help somebody or help them get into somebody else's hands who could do a better job than I could at it. So that's kind of what got me there. Sacred Heart University was just a school that I was able to both play soccer. They had a physical therapy program, and it worked. It was kind of a small 1AA school. I wanted to play Division I sports, looked at some schools that were bigger, probably would have sat the bench and didn't have the opportunity to really go to physical therapy school at some of them. So it kind of was a great match, and it worked out really well. They offered at that time and still do a 3+3 program, where I was able to go to my undergraduate, finish that in 3 years, and then do a 3-year matriculation over to a doctorate. So at the time that I joined the profession, which at this point is 12 years ago, the physical therapy curriculum was changing a bit from a master's level to a doctorate level. So it wasn't that I necessarily sought out being a doctor. Obviously, that sounded great, but the profession was kind of transitioning. So I was the second doctoral class there. And now I would say, if not 100%, that certainly 99% of all curriculum is at that doctoral level. Because from a physical therapy standpoint, nationwide, we're able to see clients directly off the street, so to speak, or direct access. So we do have to have a little bit more of a background on triaging people on who we shouldn't see, who we should send off to the ERs or doctors and things that are outside of our scope. So that's kind of my career path so far. I did that residency, as you said, for the first year of my career, which was great. I think we talked about it over the phone. Physical therapy education is excellent, but it's very general. It's very broad. There's physical therapists in the hospital setting. There's physical therapists that work on burn units, and there's physical therapists that do what I do, which is sports and orthopedics and outpatient. So I wanted to just kind of fine tune that one area that I was always passionate about, which was sports and orthopedics. That's why I decided to do my residency with some great therapists, great doctors, and got that background. And I joined Todd, it seems like yesterday, but I joined Todd and the crew here at Performance about 11 years ago. And I've been here ever since.
Awesome. And I love what you brought up, the distinction between where the profession is going and what a doctorate in physical therapy. And similar on the nutrition side. We can't diagnose, but we could, if somebody comes to us with a diagnosis, right, we can make recommendations. And so it's almost similar to what you're saying, where as a doctorate of physical therapy, and when you're going direct to patient or patients are coming to you directly, that diagnosis piece and the triage element of it becomes really important. So thank you for bringing that up. We'll come back to that in a little bit. Yeah, we'll come back to that. I'm curious too, because physical therapy is so hands-on, and yet now we're living in this very virtual, remote world. So how did that impact you guys? What changes have you made, and how have you still been able to work with patients even from the beginning of quarantine?
Yeah, it was a crazy time earlier, so we had to kind of pivot the business pretty quickly. So we rewind back to, I guess, March is where everything really started to take that downward turn, where cases were spiking. We didn't really know what's what with masks and precautions and what to take. So once that started happening, we could, as an essential business, stay open. But for the safety of our staff and kind of the better safety of the community at large, we closed down from the standpoint of non-essential orthopedic care. So we did have people who had surgeries maybe the week prior who really needed that hands-on work. Otherwise, they really would have been up a creek without a paddle, so to speak. So we did stay open for some of those individuals. From a staffing standpoint, we unfortunately had to furlough a lot of our staff, which I'm happy to say we were able to bring back. But those are some dark days in terms of just decreasing staff to really only an essential one or two individuals, shifting the majority, I would say 80 to 90% of the practice was over to telehealth and telemedicine, keeping those urgent care cases, those post-surgical cases for the first 2 months. And then really from there, starting to kind of ramp the business back up slowly and safely. At that point, more precautions were there. The CDC was more in line with wearing masks, and we had a little bit more of a data set to kind of pull from. So we're now to the point of, seeing definitely more of a mix. We see more in person than than telehealth, I should say. We do some outdoor sessions. Got to be creative with group classes and things that we weren't able to do from the fitness side of things. We talked about the physical therapy side. We're also a wellness company, so we have Pilates and massage and nutrition. So we just had to do a lot of those things virtually and bring stuff back on site on a staged basis. So we started with physical therapy, then we added personal training, Pilates, massage, etc. We have great landlords outside that we rent space from, so we're able to go outside in the parking lot in our Fairfield County offices. Obviously, our Manhattan office offers a different challenge. So basically, long-winded answer, but we pivoted pretty quickly, and I view it obviously as try to see the bright side of things. It was a bit of a blessing in the sense that this was on our agenda to accomplish by Q4 of this year anyway. We wanted to have more of a telehealth, telemedicine presence. That's where a lot of medicine is going. It just forced us to have to do it quickly and really think on our feet. So from that standpoint, we're now far ahead of where we would have been this time this year if COVID didn't happen.
Nice. So let's talk about this a little bit in terms of the physical therapy, because I think a lot of times, and especially a lot of our listeners, we know about it, as you said before, in the context of like post-surgery or a rehabilitation. But when you and I spoke, we sort of talked about it in the context of like the bigger picture of our health. So share with everybody how you guys see, physical therapy and fitting in with everything.
So physical therapy, when I started, was more of that reactionary model of medicine where someone got injured, then they came to see you as a physical therapist. So it could be post-surgically, could be non-surgically, but it was injury, then seek treatment. Where it's shifted to now, and I think still where it really needs to go, is that people are seeing us on an annual or quarterly basis, depending on the individual, for wellness care, for when they're not injured, to say, okay, you're a little bit tight in this area, you're now at a higher risk of injury. Here's 5 exercises for you to treat yourself. Here's a little bit of hands-on work, but you don't need to see me every week. So I think those that practiced that way and got in line with that did well and survived COVID. The practitioners that, and I know a lot of great manual therapists, and that's a huge part of what I do and what we do, so I'm not downplaying that at all. But if you're an advocate for your patient to always get themselves better and empower them to have the tools to get better themselves, then you're going to be fine at a time like this. They may, need you to get some hands-on work in a month or so whenever they're comfortable doing it. And we've had a lot of people come in exactly for that and then switch back to telehealth and say, okay, let's just keep fit through the right exercises. So it's caused a good shift in the mentality around physical therapy. what I always tell people is I'm just kind of an educator more so than anything. My job is to give you the tools to treat yourself. When I started 11, 12 years ago, it was like, to say something like treat yourself, I would have probably scoffed at or got upset. Like, what do you mean? I'm a physical therapist. I just spent all this time and money getting my doctorate. People need to come see me to get better. But really what I've learned in my career is that, if you're that educational resource, the business is always going to be there. People are always going to have injuries that they'll come to see you with. But really, I'd rather not see them injured. I'd rather see them healthy, see their friends and families when they maybe fall on the ski slopes or have something. So injury are an inevitability. You don't want that repeat business for the same thing where you're treating the same thing over and over, because then you're not getting that patient better. I'd rather see discharged people, see happy, healthy clients more on the wellness side of things.
Awesome. I love that. And it's interesting to think about it in the bigger picture, because a lot of times I think chiropractic care has gone into that preventative, go regularly conversation, but physical therapy is maybe making its way there. So explain to everybody too the difference there and why we need, in your opinion, one or the other or both.
The difference between maybe chiropractic and physical therapy?
Yep.
I mean, I think you need a great practitioner in your camp that gets the whole picture, irrespective of whether they're a physical therapist or a chiropractor. And I know physical therapists that do it well, and I know chiropractors that do it well, and I know the opposite, right? So I think irrespective of the discipline, I'll talk about the background. So chiropractors have a little bit of a different background, more in spinal adjustments and manipulations. That's kind of the bread and butter of what they do. Physical therapists, I guess if you look at generalizing what we do have that manual therapy hands-on skill set. We kind of differ ourselves by being experts in exercise and prescribing the right type of exercise to rehabilitate injured tissue kind of over time. That being said, there's chiropractors that do exactly what we do, and there's physical therapists that do exactly what chiropractors do, right? So we have to kind of stay in our professional lanes, but there's a lot of overlap just because the human body is the human body. So we have, a lot of individuals within both professions that just call themselves manual therapists, whether they're a chiropractic background or physical therapy background. They focus on kind of the hands-on aspects of it and then guide people through exercises. So I've taken some of the best courses through chiropractors, and I've taken great courses through physical therapists, and I know some chiropractic friends that would say the same thing. So there's a lot of professional overlap. At times there's a little turf war, but I think it's a little foolish. I think the right practitioner kind of speaks volumes for the patient. So being a good advocate for some hands-on work based on your skill set, plus empowering people to perform the right exercises is key. And the right type of either professional doesn't promote a model of dependency where, hey, come back and see me every week because you need my hands to do this. It's, no, my hands fix this, and now you have to really fix it to get it better by doing the right exercises and creating some muscle balance and good functional movements.
Awesome. I love that so much. So let's dig into some of the signs and symptoms that we might experience that would be an indication, hopefully an early indication, of someone needing to see someone like you.
Sure. I think pain that is reproducible by general movements, so orthopedic type movements, so getting up and down from a chair, stairs, etc. Those are the things that tend to be orthopedic in nature versus someone who has kind of resting, unrelenting pain. It's not aggravated by activity. Those are the kind of red flags that we would say, okay, go see a medical doctor for, because those could be signs and symptoms of something that's beyond our scope as orthopedic practitioners. So my shoulder hurts when I raise it overhead. My shoulder hurts when I grab something from the cabinet. But when I'm resting it's okay. And it's not unrelenting. It's not night pain that's not explained by anything. And there's no weird constitutional symptoms of like fever or malaise associated with that. So that would be general for those type symptoms. And obviously we can get region specific, but I hope that answered your question.
Yeah. And I think we talked about this too. Even guys like headaches, lower back pain, right? Like you said, if you're standing up from where you're sitting and your back hurts,
right,
it's an indication. I think things tend to fall into two categories in my mind. And, obviously correct me if I'm wrong. I sort of feel like there's the no exercise inactivity challenge, and then there's the overuse challenge, and sort of both sides produce symptoms, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You have to help individuals find that balance. And we see it now in COVID times, certainly early on, where people are like, hey, I'm not having to commute in. I just saved myself 2 hours on either end. I'm just going to exercise for all of those 2 hours on both ends, and they're kind of overdoing it. Then you have people there's fear and anxiety of a global pandemic. There's crazy work from home schedules. Kids are homeschooled. It's just you can't find a moment for yourself, and it's really easy to get in bad habits and then just give up and do nothing. So we kind of had two ends of the spectrum, and during that time, that's kind of a microcosm of what we see in society at large in non-COVID times, where you kind of help everyone find balance in the middle, and most everybody will kind of find a healthy, happy medium and be in less pain. So the goal of whether it be what I do, physical therapy, what you do, just health coaching and nutritional, is just help people find what works for them and find workable, tangible things in their schedule that allow them to live optimally.
Exactly. So let's start with probably maybe what is potentially the biggest challenge right now is that a lot of us working from home are working in spaces that were not necessarily designed for us to be sitting at or working from, so how would you recommend setting up, like an ergonomic workstation at home?
Yeah. So sitting is, I don't know who said it or who coined it, but I say it all the time. So it's not mine, but someone said sitting is the new smoking. And it's
Totally.
it's a bit of hyperbole, but it really is true that the human body was not designed to sit. Like from an evolutionary standpoint, we're hunters and gatherers. Our body functions better just under the weight of gravity with legs underneath us, right? So the easy thing to say is if you have to sit, then sit better. And that's really where ergonomics come in. So if you don't have a formal ergonomic assessment, we'll talk about ways to kind of get that. And especially with Zoom and digital platforms, it's very easy to get that from the convenience and comfort of your own home. But in general, I'll just kind of lay out some guidelines where everyone can look at. What I encourage some of my clients to do is, even if you don't have a formal ergonomic assessment, have a loved one just take a picture with their smartphone kind of right next to you, and we can kind of go over the results. So in general, when you're sitting, you want to sit in a comfortable chair. Comfortable means, a cushioned yet firm bottom, so you're not kind of slouched in or slumped in. That puts a little bit too much pressure on the low back, the discs, etc. So you want a comfortable chair with some lumbar support. If you're taking a look from the side, your ear, your shoulder, your hip more or less should fall in line. Elbows and knees should be bent in around 90 degrees. There's some variability there, but you shouldn't be someone who's sitting with the knees excessively high. That puts too much pressure on the hips. Also, just where the monitor is positioned. If you're viewing a computer, the monitor should be positioned basically in front of you, kind of with an upward tilt of 10 to 20 degrees if you're kind of looking at some of the textbooks. But the example I use is, a laptop. Usually you're looking down a little bit. So ideally, if you're having to function on a laptop, you're bringing that up to eye level, and then you're using a keyboard that's separate from the iPad that's close to you, so that your elbows are bent more or less at a 90-degree angle, keyboard's in front of you, and your wrists aren't cocked up too much beyond like 10 degrees or so, because then you can deal with some carpal tunnel types and symptoms. Those are kind of like the take-home messages. Feet should be positioned either flat on the floor. I even like a little bit of dorsiflexion, which is toes kind of up towards you. So I have some people get wedges or kind of foot rests. And I think that kind of wraps it up without going too in depth. But I would encourage everyone, if they haven't looked at that work setup and they're getting neck pain, they're getting headaches, that's almost 90% of where that's coming from, is spending a lot of time in front of computers in an ineffective, inefficient workstation. We work here in Fairfield County in New York. Obviously, a lot of people that are traders should have multiple monitors. So that chair, it's important to be able to swivel and kind of encourage them to kind of face kind of directly onto their environment so their neck isn't turned to one position. So those are kind of the take-home messages there. And then I think what may be helpful is if I can put something together for you and maybe you attach it to show notes that kind of has all that wrapped up. So individuals don't have to worry about remembering it. That would be great.
Yeah, we can include like a photo or something for everybody. And I know, what about for kids, right? Kids now have this school setup, excessive screen time. Is it the same kind of setup that we want for kids, or is it different?
I would say it's the same setup. It doesn't have to differ for kids. But I am seeing an increased incidence of neck pain, headaches, and low back pain in a population of kids that I've never seen before, because they're spending so much more time on their computers. The kids in general, and I was the same way when I was a teenager, like they're just bad sitters. They're sacral sitters. They just yield to gravity. They slump, they slouch, they're less mindful of it. And at that point in their life, they're invincible, so they really don't have pain until they start to develop it. But they're now starting to develop it a lot sooner with kind of the schooling from home and some of the things that we're experiencing now. So the same ergonomic setup, what I've encouraged a lot of those individuals to do, school-age kids, is to either get blue blocking glasses, blue blocking software on their computer, just because the effects of just blue light on headaches and how it can directly cause headaches, I've seen quite of a spike in. So that, and then if they're not on their computer for school, a lot of them are texting or on their
Right.
smartphones, right? So it's also mitigating that and making sure they have programmed outdoor time. Just go outside, play with your friends, or nowadays maybe not play with your friends, but play in your backyard with your siblings maybe. But just get outside, get away from it. Don't go from school right to homework, right to Instagram, right? Not the best mix. So it's part education, and it's a lot of just giving the parents some of that information as well.
And then what about on the, I hesitate to call it the exercise front, but potentially it is, like on the movement side, what are things we can do to potentially, maybe we can't undo it, but to mitigate some of the damage that we're doing, not just by working from home and sitting all day, but in our lives, like you said, sitting is the new smoking. So what are the things that we can do to help sort of limit or mitigate the damage that we're doing?
So we talked about sitting better. The other aspect would be to sit less, right? So it sounds simple, but I encourage everyone, if you're sitting for about 30 minutes, try to stand up for at least 10, right? So getting in the mindset of setting reminders on your phone, your smartwatch, whatever it may be, give you little reminders to ping you throughout the day to get up and move around. Standing desks are huge, and there's a lot of convertible ones now that are quite easy that allow you to stand throughout. If you can stand on the phone for a meeting, stand on the phone for a meeting. If you can get up and move around throughout the day, do so. From an exercise standpoint, simple postural exercises, just thinking about your shoulder blades kind of squeezing down and back, chest is upright, shoulder blades are back, so you're not slouching and yielding to gravity. A simple chin tuck exercise where you're trying to retract or bring your chin back a little bit so it's not that forward head posture where you're always straining to see the monitor. Those are helpful. Simple band exercises. Anyone who's been in for therapy, TheraBand next to your desk and your work setup, and some simple things just to get those postural muscles activated, kind of like a standing row, for example, is a simple one that people can do. So if I prescribe 3 to 5 exercises, and again, I could give them to you and maybe upload in show notes, just simple things people can do throughout the day. But if sitting is an inevitability, then try to sit less and try to sit better. And have some things around the desk that remind you of what you're supposed to do. That could be a TheraBand. It could be a foam roller, getting up and foam rolling for 5 minutes while you're on a conference call, right? There's lots of different options. The good thing about Zoom sometimes is you can unshare your camera and you can kind of get off camera and do some things while still listening and still being engaged. That may better your orthopedic situation.
Yeah. So if I'm hearing you correctly, it's a lot of doing the reverse of whatever posture we're sitting in. So if we're sitting, standing, if we're hunched forward, right, like opening the chest, bringing the shoulders back, bringing the head back in alignment, all of those kinds of good things. Yep. You mentioned foam rolling, and I want to dig more into that in a second. Really quick, a message from our partner for this episode, Snap Cleaning Products. Make household and industrial cleaning a snap with their eco-friendly, economical, multi-purpose Snap products. Snap's concentrated multi-purpose formulas perform light to industrial strength jobs all in one bottle. Snap products give you the cleaning power of a variety of cleaners, saving you time, money, and valuable storage space. And Snap products were developed with the environment in mind, using plant-based ingredients that are biodegradable, phosphate-free, non-toxic, and bottled in recyclable containers. So I've shared this with you guys before, but the Snap 2 Cleaner Disinfectant is a highly concentrated cleaner. It cleans, disinfects, and deodorizes. It's phosphate-free, readily biodegradable, perfect for bathrooms, kitchens, hospitals, pet kennels, nursing homes, athletic and recreational facilities, food service establishments, and more. One bottle replaces up to 32 bottles of any leading antibacterial all-purpose cleaner, and it meets the EPA's criteria for use against COVID-19. So if you haven't already, it's time to give this one a try. To get 10% off your order, text the word CLEAN, CLEAN, to 844-947-4846. You'll receive the link and coupon code right to your phone. Again, simply text the word CLEAN to 844-947-4846. This is a toll-free number. Standard text and data rates may apply. Okay, Mike, back to you. Maybe it's lower back, our neck. We have a foam roller. What do we do?
Great question. So first step would be using it and not having it store in the closet, which I've seen a lot of people do. It's a great accessory, but it's not meant to be a household accessory. So get on it. But there are a lot of things that people do wrong. So basically, you want to find an area of tension in the musculoskeletal system. So it could be your low back pain. We'll use that as an example. So your low back's a little stiff from sitting. So if you're going on a foam roller, perpendicular to your back, rolling up and down on either side, not really on the middle where there's that bony spinous process. I'm not going to be too comfortable, but there's two like baguettes on either side of the spine, the erector spinae muscles and some of the deeper muscles that you can easily get some relief by rolling. You're rolling on the muscle and you're rolling on the fascia being that kind of white, glistening connective tissue that envelops all of our muscles, a lot of the soft tissues of our body. So by doing and moving up and down on that, you're releasing some adhesions within that fascia. You're also mobilizing fluid within that fascia. So fascia is actually 70% water. So you're bringing some blood flow to the area and you're helping to reduce muscle tension. So there's been studies and debates on what exactly foam rolling does and what mechanism it works. It decreases pain. It improves muscle mobility. The exact mechanisms, we're not quite sure how. But getting on there for a few minutes and getting on an area that's a little bit sore and tender and working on it is definitely beneficial. You want to go kind of above the sore area, below the sore area. And if it's really sore, you don't want to spend a lot of time on there. One thing that people do wrong on the foam roller is they get an area that's irritable already and they irritate it more. So in that case, I would work above it, work below it. Should feel like you're kind of melting that tissue away slowly, and don't be too aggressive. Sometimes it's that good type pain, and a lot of people are built that way. It's like, ooh, this hurts, I need to do it more. But there's a balance. I've seen people bruised and battered from foam rollers. You don't need to be. It doesn't need to be too aggressive. It should be, more along the lines of kind of a firm soft tissue massage if anyone's ever gotten one.
Yeah. And I want to touch on this a second longer because also, different parts of the body, like, how long, if you're holding it in one spot, how long do you stay there before kind of rolling it to another spot and then sitting on it for, maybe 30 seconds or something? But how long is too long? How do we know when we've done it, too much?
So when you're experiencing adverse effects when you get up, like when it's too sore afterwards to the point where it feels worse. So the feel factor is valuable. And I think sometimes we forget that or negate that. Like it's meant to help you feel better and move better afterwards. So there's not a direct amount of time. In general, I tell people, if you're spending a large muscle group, say like the quads, you can spend 5 minutes working on it. There's different quadrants, there's different areas to work on. A small muscle group, say like in the front of the chest and the pec, you're just going to kind of mash up the tissue if you're doing it more than 2 minutes. So it really shouldn't be excessively long. I kind of cap it on 5 minutes per large muscle group, 2 minutes for the smaller muscle groups. And really you should be doing that and breathing into it and not fighting against it. Some people get on there and it's just so painful that they're fighting against it the whole time. You might as well not have gotten on it, right? So find a balance. And there's different densities to foam rollers. I think that's another important thing to highlight. You can start with a lower density if you're new to it or somebody that is it's really uncomfortable. It doesn't need to be very uncomfortable to be effective. In fact, sometimes that can be counterproductive. So it's hard to give an exact time frame, but I think those parameters would help.
Yeah, for sure. And I love the idea too of just being aware of what density your foam roller is and, making some educated choices for ourselves.
Yeah.
So I think we've talked about the foam roller, Therabands. What are your thoughts on like the Theraguns or they're almost like a massage gun for people who don't know, and you sort of hold it and you can describe it better than I can. I'm not doing a very good job.
No, you're doing a good job. I mean, it's kind of like a power tool, right? So it's like a drill that vibrates back and forth, and it has a cushioned head on it that can be modifiable to go to different parts of your body. But basically, it's like a trigger point release gun. Has some vibration technology, which kind of allows it to go at a rapid percussion rate. I like them. I don't like them for all things. And I don't, brand to me doesn't necessarily matter. We've got great different brands, and I think you can get effect out of some and you can get effect out of others. It doesn't necessarily matter too much to me. I think if you get an area where it's like kind of a knot or a trigger point. So use the foam roll example. You're rolling on your quad and you're like, ooh, this one area, it feels like there's a little bit of a ball or a lump under there. And I'm rolling on that and it's just not releasing that much. That may be an area you would target with a gun. But to take the gun and go down your whole leg, probably would be a little bit labor intensive for the rest of it. If we're doing it to feel better, your arms would get tired, your back, you're going to be slunched over. So it really is meant for just localized treatment of a trigger point. So I like to start broad with say something like a foam roller and then say, okay, this is 1 or 2 areas that I really want to hit with that trigger point gun if the individual can tolerate it. It's very individualized. Some people have everyone has different pain tolerances. So if you're somebody that is just bearing down, gritting your teeth and tightening up more, again, it defeats the purpose. But some people love it. So I'm one of the people that kind of a glutton for punishment that I love it, but it's not for everybody. And there's some bony spots in your body that you really shouldn't be drilling on. So use some tools. There's a lot of good videos on YouTube of how to do it and how to do it correctly. So just avoid not going willy-nilly and just blasting yourself or a loved one, which you'll see as well. So
Right. That was going to be my next question is like, how do we know if we're doing it? Not even how do we know, but like, what are the absolute wrong spots to be using the Theragun?
So I don't love it on bony prominences at all, right? Because you're not going to get anything but a bruised knee, patella, et cetera. So if it feels like a bone, looks like a bone, it is a bone. So stay off of that. The meatier the tissue, the more muscular the tissue, the more likely you are to have success, because then you're really intervening in the muscle area where there could be some knots and some trigger points. So staying away from bony prominence is a simple one. And then if it's hurting in real time, disproportionate to what you would feel if you're kind of getting into like a sports massage, then you're probably on the wrong area. So it shouldn't be a pain that's disproportionate with the amount of pressure you're putting on it.
Okay, cool. And then I guess, how do we know? I mean, maybe the answer is just continued pain or prolonged pain, but how do we know that our own physical therapy practice at home is insufficient and we need to come see an expert?
Yeah, good point. So if we use like the Theragun, I should say, as an example, if you're hitting a tissue and it's sore, you're going to work it until it's a little bit less sore. But if you're taking a percussion gun over and over on an area, it's going to be sore over time, and it may never feel like it's 100%. So people with a foam roller always ask, when is it going to feel like there's no pain? It's always going to feel a little bit uncomfortable. Even if you compare it to your other side, it's going to feel a little bit uncomfortable. So I always remind people of why they're doing it in the first place. So that's what we call in physical therapy or orthopedics that concordant symptom, the symptom of pain. So when I was reaching overhead in a cabinet, my shoulder hurt. And I thought, okay, it could be a knot or a trigger point in my lat muscle. And then I started treating it. The goal of that is then to retest what brought you to the dance, so to speak, which is reaching into a cabinet. So pain is kind of your guide of why you're doing it in the first place and not losing sight of that. Loss of motion is another sign, or gain in motion. So if I'm doing all the right things that we discussed here on the podcast and then some, and I'm still lacking 10 degrees of shoulder motion and my shoulder hurts, and I've been doing it for 3 to 4 weeks, it's probably time to see a medical practitioner, right? It's time to get some hands-on work, because there's some things that we just can't work around, because there's the muscle aspect of things, which are a little bit easier to manage independently. But then there's the joint mechanics and getting in there and having someone do some joint work that really requires an expert to get in there. So if you're doing it for, my window is like 2 to 3 weeks and you're really not seeing results, it's probably time to get treated. Or just, if you're not comfortable going into a place right now because of COVID, hop on a telehealth session and let someone kind of advise you maybe on some things that are a little bit more specific.
Awesome. So that brings us to, okay, now they're like, okay, I need to see a physical therapist. How do we choose one? I mean, from our earlier conversation, the whole industry seems to be going to most or all practitioners really having a doctorate in physical therapy. But what else? What questions should we ask? How can we tell if somebody's worth their salt?
Great question. So the degree doesn't mean as much as sometimes it should, right? So you can get a brand new graduate who may be great, but is still a brand new graduate that has a doctorate, versus someone like Todd, who you're on the podcast with, who graduated. Mm-hmm. I always joke 50 years ago, he's not that old, but he graduated when it was still bachelor's level education, but he has 25 to 30 years of clinical experience, right? So that's why you can't use the degree. So I would look at their bio, see what they've done. On the other side of that is someone who's been practicing for 30 years but hasn't kept up with continuing education in the past 10, probably is a little bit old and outdated. So I think there's a sweet spot of finding someone with some experience, finding someone that's in a good model around great mentors, finding someone who's either taught, who's published, who is some recent continuing education courses, who has areas of interest maybe that are similar to you, because it's a personal relationship as well. So reading someone's bio is a great way to start. So go onto a website, look at the bio, the letters after the name, you can navigate through that a little bit. Like I have alphabet soup after my name. It doesn't necessarily mean as much as reading into my bio and seeing if we'd be a good personality match, seeing if the injuries that I like to treat is something that you're presenting with. So I think that will help navigate a little bit more. Don't worry too much about the letters. Worry more about just personality match and easy call. Reach out to the office. The ones that want to help you are going to get back to you to say, hey, here's what I'm going through. Here's what I'm dealing with. Is this something that you treat? To give me a little bit about your background. I love when patients quiz me. Just kind of ask me, just, hey, what would you do for this? And I'll give them the open, honest answer. And if it's a good fit, it's a good fit. So anyone who has a website that has an email on there, that should be a right to email that person, ask for specific help. So look at the bio, try to match, but don't always guess. Just reach out to an individual ahead of time. That's a great way.
Awesome. And I like the idea of asking them, like, what would you do for this?
Yeah, totally.
And then you ask that question to a couple of different practitioners, and you probably have some great insight into which direction you would want to go.
Right, exactly. And if you're getting similar answers, okay, so that everyone seems to be in line. This maybe is kind of a standard treatment. Or if there's someone who has a really esoteric focus on just one thing and you're really into it and you read some research, like, okay, so that's going to be something that, I may not be focused on as somebody else would. But I like someone who's a little bit more well-rounded and not too dogmatic, I think is another way to look at it.
Nice. And then how do you consider the cost factor? Insurance, no insurance, like our healthcare system is a whole thing that you and I talked a lot about before, but how do we evaluate the pricing in this decision also?
Another great question. I think that could be 3 podcasts unto itself.
Right.
So I'll try and be succinct. The value of a good practitioner is worth its weight in gold in what it's going to save you long term. So it doesn't mean you always have to spend more, but you have to weigh out that, okay, if this practitioner maybe is taking my insurance, but they're an out-of-network practitioner, for example, but they have a great practice model, I really like them. And, in this conversation, it says, okay, it's going to take 6 visits and I know it's going to cost $250 to see that individual per session, right? So I can extrapolate that out versus, okay, I have to meet my in-network deductible and I'm going to go for 30 visits because that person may not be able to spend as much time with me and I'm going to go a bit longer. Or conversely, I don't have the means and I want to go in-network and I found a great practice that does it the right way where they're not seeing a high volume of patients. So really, cost starts with just the practice model to say, okay, what practice model do I think is the best fit for what I need physically, and then what meets my needs financially. So the misconception in healthcare is that if you don't take someone's insurance in network, you don't take someone's insurance. So I'm an out-of-network practitioner for the most part, but I do 100% take individuals' insurance. It just goes through the out-of-network benefits. But nowadays in healthcare, like in-network and out-of-network deductibles, they're both fairly high. A lot of people may not meet their deductibles, period. So it's just where you want to spend your money. Do you want to spend it going towards one deductible or the other? Either way, it's kind of going to be an out-of-pocket expense. So it's a little bit hard to navigate, but like our team here, we go through insurance ahead of time, give someone their full disclosure of what everything would cost, and then kind of help them make their decision. So be your own advocate and ask a lot of questions. If it's in network, that's great. If it's out of network, that could be great as well. It makes a difference in terms of what you're getting in the product. So look at the product first, see what's the best fit, and then go from there.
Awesome. I love that, being your own advocate. And, again, it's always making the right choice for you. And one of my mentors says, if you can't make space in your budget for wellness, how will you ever make space for sickness? Because sickness is way more costly.
That's sage advice.
Exactly. I love it. So is this the kind of thing that, someone is talking to the potential physical therapist, the treatment plan is likely to be, a relatively short time period, or is this the kind of thing that we're really going to do for forever?
It shouldn't be for forever in terms of you going to a place and spending money, right? It should be forever in the sense of you're getting valuable knowledge that you're going to take home with you, right? So I use a case of low back pain. The biggest predictor of future low back pain is previous low back pain. So it is something that can recur. Doesn't mean you have to go in and see somebody every time it recurs. You want to see the individual that says, okay, when this does inevitably raise its head at a lesser level than it is right now, here's 5 things that you can do to keep you from having to see me, from keeping you having to go get an expensive MRI or go to see a doctor. So I think empowering people to kind of navigate through as much of it on their own is going to be valuable there as well.
Awesome. And that's the point of today, really. Empower everybody, to be our own physical therapists, to make our bodies a priority, physically and otherwise. Mike, anything else you want to share before we head into some off-topic questions?
Let's see. Anything I want to share? No, I mean, I think from a physical therapy standpoint, do your research and your due diligence online, reach out to the individuals. Appreciate that anyone who's in the therapy, chiropractic realm, we're here because we want to help people. So the ones that are going to get back to you in the email are the ones that really are going to care and take care of you. So if there's a question, we're pretty transparent throughout the medical community here. So just ask.
Awesome. All right. Well, that brings us to the time of our interview. I ask a short list of rapid fire off-topic questions to every expert who joins us. Are you ready?
I love it. Yeah.
All right. What's the best thing you've done for your health this week? And what's the naughtiest thing you've done related to your health this week?
Best thing I've done for my health this week is listening to my Aura Ring. So I wear an Aura Ring, and I'm the personality type where sometimes if I feel like I didn't get the best sleep or didn't really eat optimally, that I won't even look at it because I know it's going to tell me I really shouldn't go hard in the gym the next day, and I'll just kind of ignore it and then look at it after my workout, and maybe I'll get a headache or something like that, right? So listening and really practicing what I preach from that standpoint and tapering things back and not working out on a day or going for a light walk versus going and being kind of obsessive like I normally am. So that was the naughtiest thing. Nutritionally, my wife makes fun of me. My daughter now makes fun of me. At least the one that can communicate right now. My youngest hasn't gotten to making fun of me, but that's coming pretty soon.
All in due time.
Only due time, exactly. Is nutritionally, I'm a salt guy. I'm not. I never had a sweet tooth, so I'm lucky in that regard. But I'm a salt guy. So potato chips, nachos, like those are my bugaboos. So I can't have them in the house. There was some tortilla chips that worked their way in there, and I took down a good amount of nachos. I think on Monday. So it was kind of my cheat meal.
Awesome. If you weren't a physical therapist, what would you do?
I came close to being a marine biologist. And when I say close, I mean that I applied to colleges for it. I didn't get too much beyond that. I love and still love, like I scuba dive. I love the water. I'm like the adult male Moana, if you've ever seen that. I go to the water whenever possible. So I think I would have done that. It was a disproportionate amount of time on a boat looking through a microscope away from humanity. So to get where I wanted to be, which is really like studying sharks and whales, I'd have to go through a lot of microbiology that I wasn't too interested in. So I came close, but I guess that's what I would do.
Awesome. All right. Favorite book on any topic other than your area of expertise? It could be fiction also.
Ooh, that's a tough one. I like a lot of American history. So I like a lot of Ron Chernow's work. So Hamilton was a good one that I recently went through again during the pandemic. So I would have to say that's up there for me. But just American history in general, I love. Currently, I'm going through Dirty Genes, if you read that book.
Yes.
So I'm only a couple chapters in, but I do enjoy that. So I do a lot of kind of geeky optimal health stuff in the morning on my drives in. So I love that stuff.
You and me both. I totally geek out. If you could cure one ailment, disease, or sickness, what would it be?
Ooh, great question. I think it's probably been said on the podcast before, but cancer, it's something that affected me personally, family history of it. So that definitely is something that I think we lose far too many good people towards. And I think we're getting there. And hopefully in my lifetime, we'll find some type of a cure, definitely better management strategies. But that would be something if I had the knowledge base to do it, I would do it.
Absolutely. If you were a superhero, what would be your superpower?
Ooh. I think I have to go with the ability to fly. Superman does it for me. I mean, just flying is such a cool thing. Batman, the utility belt, it's kind of just going to the hardware store, nothing special there. Spider-Man, great to be flexible, but I feel like humans can kind of almost get there on their own. But the art of flight, that's it.
Awesome. I get it. What's your biggest pet peeve?
Biggest pet peeve. That's a good one. I'm trying to not sound like a cranky old man. I think wasted talent. If I had to pick one thing, people who have potential and wasted talent. It was something that one of my favorite movies, A Bronx Tale, that Sonny said in A Bronx Tale, the saddest thing in life is wasted talent. When you have individuals that you know have potential, but they're just not pushing themselves to get there, that is a huge pet peeve of mine.
Agreed. Finally, in your opinion, what's the next frontier in wellness?
I think we're kind of there with wearables and being very data driven. So I think that's part of it. And I think stem cells and what's going to come out of stem cell medicine, but both from orthopedic, cancer treatments, et cetera, I think across the board, stem cells and being more objective with wearable data is where I would say.
Amazing. Well, Mike, thank you again for being here. Tell everybody how to find you, your podcast, Performance PT, all the things.
Great. So our podcast is Optimal Health Uncovered. We're on everywhere that you can get your podcasts. Our practice is Performance Physical Therapy. We're located in Fairfield County in Connecticut, New Haven County in Connecticut, and an office in Midtown Manhattan. Website is www.performance-pt.com. I'm not a huge personal social media guy, but all of our performance social media is where you can definitely find me.
Awesome. And of course, telehealth. So if you guys want to reach out to Mike, he's available for that. I'm volunteering you.
Yeah,
by the way.
absolutely. I love to help people. The telehealth, it really, like I said, it's kind of a blessing that we weren't appreciating. I could reach people where I wasn't able to reach them before in time of need. Happy to do that. Ergonomic assessments, happy to do those. Any way I can help, I'm here.
Yeah. Speaking of that, guys, post your photos of your adjusted home office setups, right? Or send us like before and after, post them on social media, tag us and Performance PT. That'll be really fun.
That would be great.
Excellent. Do you have one more minute to hang out for our nutrition nugget?
Sure, absolutely.
Perfect. This week's nutrition nugget is all about cereal. So I know this is a go-to breakfast item. Do you remember those old commercials that told us a balanced breakfast was a bowl of cereal, 2 pieces of toast, and a glass of orange juice?
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Crazy. Crazy. And many of us did it. Many people still start their day with a bowl of cereal. But then what happens? We eat the cereal for breakfast, we have some energy, and then a couple hours later, maybe like mid-morning, we're tired and hungry again, right? And that's because the cereal for breakfast spiked our blood sugar. We had a bit of energy for a short period of time, and then our blood sugar dropped, we crashed, we're tired and hungry again. So in an effort to get energy again, what do we reach for? Right? More food and our body is going to crave that which gives us fuel the fastest way possible. Our body is looking for fast energy. Chemically, then we're craving more bread, more cereal, more of those high glycemic choices. So what do we do? Because here we're all about balance, and we're never going to say go the rest of your life without eating cereal, right? Just not reasonable. So for those of you who join us often, you know our mantra, protein and fiber at every meal makes your moving fat no big deal. So how does cereal fit into this? I've got you. So it goes back to our episodes about reading labels and also on net carbs. So you're going to read the labels of your cereals, choose the one that has the lowest net carb possible. But truth be told, you're going to be hard pressed to find a cereal that offers you single digit net carbs. There are a couple out there, but they're not in your typical grocery store. And like I said, we're all about being reasonable. So here's how we can do it. Read the label, see what you can find, like I said, that says low in net carbs as possible. And no matter what the net carbs are, we want to choose something that has at least 5 grams of protein and at least 5 grams of fiber and less than 5 grams of fat. Remember that rule of 5. And then read the ingredients to be sure that it's actually made of whole or sprouted grains. From there, we're going to build our meal. Remember, protein and fiber. And we also want some quality fat. So what can you add to your cereal to give you some extra fiber? Fruit is an awesome one, right? That's really my go-to, especially with cereal. And then you can add some protein and quality fat with some nuts. We talked about nuts on last week's nutrition nugget, so I'll send you guys there for more on the nut front. I've also been in a situation with limited options years ago. I was a photo shoot producer and traveling for work, and the breakfast options were really limited on the photo shoot. So I actually made a protein shake and used that as almost like the milk with the cereal. Again, trying to get that protein and fiber to keep us balanced. Perhaps, remember too, it doesn't need to be everything coming from one source. So we can get a little bit of protein from the nuts and maybe maybe a protein shake or the milk or an egg coupled with it. And then maybe you don't even necessarily need a full serving of that cereal. Maybe you can add it in. So for another breakfast example, maybe you're having low-fat Greek yogurt or low-fat cottage cheese, adding some almonds and walnuts, some berries, and then sprinkle the cereal over it for some texture. You're getting your cereal fixed, but avoiding that spike and crash from cereal for breakfast. Sound good?
That sounds great. I think breakfast is my hardest meal for sure, because I just run out of options and I find myself eating eggs almost every day, right? Some oatmeal almost every day. So I think that's really valuable just to mix it up a little bit. I'm going to put some protein in, maybe some muesli cereal or something like that. Get that. I like that a lot.
Yeah. And that actually, you just brought it up, the oatmeal, the hot cereal thing. So really quick to touch on it, You want to make sure that your hot cereal is starting from a grain and is close to a form as close to nature as possible. So that means choosing the steel cut oats. Avoid the instant oats, the quick 1 minute, cook time options, because realize to get the grain to cook in a minute or a few seconds, or maybe even just by adding hot water, right? They have to be processed to be able to do that. That processing can actually change the nutritional value of the food. Remember, the more work the machine does, the less work our body does. And our body's digestive system was meant to do that work, to break down our food. So those instant versions have virtually zero fiber or protein. So if you want those hot cereals, especially as we head into colder months, choose the old-fashioned, long cooking versions. Make them, in a batch, maybe on the weekend or one night while you're making dinner, and then throw it in the fridge. And then it's still fast in the morning. So there you have it, guys. Cereal can be a tough one when focusing on our health, but it's not off limits.
That's great.
Awesome. Yeah. Mike, one more time, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. This is excellent. I love it.
As always, I'm your host, Jen Trepeck. Connect with me on Instagram at Jen Trepeck, JenNTrepeck. Our Facebook page is at the same handle, and we want to hear from you. So please submit your questions, ideas. Of course, share us on social media so that we can tag you back and get to know what your favorite takeaways are in your favorite episodes. And social media is also an easy way to reach out to learn more about working with me directly or addressing your personal concerns. Of course, if you're not already a member, join our membership program by going to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries to get this week's recipe for the breakfast bars with frosting, another easy breakfast for everybody, and your free one-on-one 30-minute session with me. Everybody, enjoy your day and your week. Remember, you can be your own physical therapist when we pay attention to how our body feels. Thanks, guys. See you next week. Well, friends, that's it for today's episode of Salad with a Side of Fries. Congratulations for making yourself and your health a priority. Thanks so much for joining us. Be sure to click subscribe or follow on your favorite podcast platform. Share us with a friend, and we'll be back next week. Always remember, you deserve it, and you are worth it. Happy healthy.